My name is Kier Johnson Reyes, Technical Assistant Specialist for California, Nevada, Pacific region of IAC. And we're so grateful to have you all join us today. This is a really sought after topic that many people have inquired about. We're really grateful to begin a series on these topics associated with food preservation. And we probably have the premier individual in the country who works on Indian country food systems and has their own cooking channel and does a lot with food preservation in her community. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to have Meagen Baldy with us today. Before we get into the bulk of the time together, just want to acknowledge that, so this was a collaboration between our food systems team, as well as a couple of us technical assistant specialists, Catherine Minthorn, who is our technical assistant specialist up in Oregon, in the Northwest region, and myself, as well as Meagen Baldy. And then I also want to give a shout out to Lottie and Courtney from American Indian Foods, who have been wonderful support for the development of this series. And so I just want to make sure that everybody is well aware of their website. Phenomenal set of information there, great resources and opportunities. And the website there is right at the top. Please do check it out. We have a producer database that's being developed, and many opportunities for trainings and engagement, as well as opportunities to purchase American Indian foods across the country. Just want to make the announcement on the couple initiatives that we're working on nationally right now. We have a farmer rancher loan relief initiative, as well as we're collecting surveys from around the country. If you go to indianag.org/farmranchhelp, you can help to support IAC's efforts to educate Congress on these critical needs around relief during COVID-19. And then also we have, these surveys that we're seeking to have filled out by Indian producers, tribal and community leaders, grocers, food hubs, cooperatives from around the country, as well as tribal food companies, participants in American Indian Foods, or interested in participating in American Indian Foods. The survey takes about 5 minutes. It's very quick. It's something that can be done on your phone. And we have weekly drawings that are going on right now for $200 prepaid Visa gift cards, as well as IAC shirts and things like that. So please do help to fill that survey out if one of those areas that we're covering is in alignment with what you do. And let's see. Without further ado, I want to just acknowledge the time and effort that it took for Meagen to pull together the materials here for us. Today will be a bit of a crash course on a lot of different topics pertaining to food preservation, and then we're so grateful that Meagen is very willing to approach various topics and conduct webinars based on the interest that's generated here, as well as interest that we've been able to document internally as well on the various food preservation topics. So Meagen Baldy is the director of the Klamath Trinity Resource Conservation District in Hoopa, California. This particular tribal resource conservation district has been featured nationally and is really seen as a model in the state of California as well. And they focus specifically on food sovereignty and increasing food access within the community. And Meagen is a wonderful asset to our team, and is a board member for the Intertribal Agriculture Council. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Ms. Meagen Baldy.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, IAC, for allowing me to be able to get this information out there. I'm very, very passionate about food preservation and food sovereignty. It's, something that is done frequently in our home, and it's something that not only I do, but it's like a family event as well. So thank you for the introduction, Kier. Appreciate that. And just wanted to just kind of give you guys the kind of rundown of what I'm going to be talking about today. I know that this is going to be a series, so there are going to be different classes after that. So just keep an eye out from IEC when they'll be posting more. But at this time, I'm just going to go over like the basics of what home preservation is. So a lot of people out there, they might have some reserve when it comes to doing home preservation classes and also, I mean, are doing home preservations in their home because of fear or possibly, not thinking that they're capable. And I just wanted to stress to you, it's not as hard as it seems. And once you start doing it, it just becomes something that you do in your lifestyle. So before we get started, I wanted to share my screen and kind of go over some resources that you can find online and something that's free. So, there's a lot of books out there. Ball makes books, and Ball is a jar company that sells, jars and canners and different equipment. They have books out there about home preservation, whether it be water bath or pressure canning or dehydrating and stuff like that. But this website right here is called the National Center for Home Preservation. So if you don't have access to purchase a book, or you don't have the ability or and a store locally that you can go on, this is actually a pretty great website. And the reason why it's really great is, it's free, but also the University of Georgia developed this website. So when we're talking about home preservation, we're talking about making sure like you can preserve foods in your home that are safe for your family to consume. So all of these resources on here have been scientifically tested that whatever that you will be preserving would actually be safe, and as long as you follow that recipe, you should be able to do it. So it has a ton of different links, and it kind of, is pretty basic. So like if you're looking like how to can, and say you would want to can like fruits, and so basically like if you want to do like apple butter, applesauce, you just click on what it is that you might want to do, and then it just basically lines out for you that process. So what is super important about home preservation is following a recipe. So, all of these recipes, like I said, have been scientifically tested. And as long as you follow these recipes, you will, for sure have a safe product that you can be confident in to feed your family. And, as I started my journey with preservation, I was really young, and I just learned a lot from elders, and I learned a lot from my mother-in-law. But I also wanted to start teaching those skills. So I actually signed up for a local Master Food Preserver course through the UC Cooperative Extension here in Humboldt County. It was about 60 miles away from Hoopa. And so it was a 6-week course, and I went out and basically took the class and was able to learn how to effectively teach people. During that class, the most thing that they stress is just following the directions, making sure that you follow whatever it says, so that that those product, whatever you're going to be canning or cooking or freezing, those types of things are safe. So it basically on this website, and once you click on things, it'll give you the entire layout. So like how much you're going to be doing, what you would expect from the food that you want to preserve, like if it's, the quality that you want, And then your procedures, like, so your procedures are really important. And the reason being is because bacteria and different microbes and things are what actually contaminates food. Air contaminates food. And so you want to make sure that everything, your procedure, you're doing the proper sanitation so that once you can your product, that you'll know it's safe. And so also it'll tell you like if it's going to be a pressure canned food or a water bath canned food or a dehydrated food. And then it also will break down for you, as you can see, like if you are in different elevations, how you would deal with the elevation in your area. So, you know, a lot of people don't know that that's a factor when doing home preservation. So this website's really cool because it breaks all of that down. Then it also will, you know, tell you, like I said, what type of method to use. It's pretty basic and standard, and it's free. So if you have any, you know, questions after this, I would just recommend just taking down this website if you were able to like get all your questions asked at the same time, or if you just kind of forgot like what I covered during this time, you could just always go back to this website, and it has a lot of great resources. Another thing that I'm going to be showing today is this book. It's called So Easy to Preserve, and this book is great. It has basic techniques for all types of preservation. So there's like 3 methods of preservation out there when you're dealing with food, and the 3 of them are canning, fermentation, and dehydrating. And so once you start getting into like what it is that you want to can, then you would say, or what it is that you would want to preserve, you would find out what method you would like to use. So you got to factor in when using those methods, like, do I want to freeze this? You know, basically you have to factor in the storage, like how much areas in my freezer can I use? Or if you're going to can it, you know, you think about the storage of where you're going to put everything. Same thing with like dehydrating, you know, how you're going to keep those afterwards, and then also factoring into how your family is going to consume those foods. So like if your family, you know, does not, like, you have a ton of tomatoes and they're not really into like canned tomatoes, maybe they're more into salsa. My family in particular, like spaghetti sauce. So like, you know, those are the things that you start factoring in while you're figuring out how you're going to preserve the food that you're going to do. Again, this is like really, really something I'm passionate about, and for numerous reasons. We are hunting, gathering, fishing people here in our community. So, you know, whenever we hunt, you know, we preserve a lot of the foods with whatever animal that we have harvested. We either factor in if we are going to make jerkies, dehydrating, if we're going to can meat or whatever it may be. The same with fishing and the same with gathering. So, and it really is great to do that in my family. And the biggest thing that I could say that I appreciate the most is that when we are out there as a family hunting or gathering or fishing, you know, we bring back that home, that to the house, and we all process that. But when I open that food or that preserved item, I can remember who I was with, like what kids I was with, where we were at, and, you know, the conversations that we were having, and it just brings back all those great memories. And that's the connection of food that we really need to get back to. And I just, you know, just love to open a jar and just think about like, oh yeah, my kids were picking these berries and we had a fun time. Or, you know, that was a really funny joke that one of the kids said. You think about those things when you open that item. So that's like one of my favorite things about preserving your own food, and just that connection to food. The same with, like, you know, our animals that we raise and we preserve later, and we're, you know, freezing. We just think about like all the hard work that the kids have put into feeding those animals, and, you know, all the hard work that we've done to process our animals. And so, you know, those are the things that you really think about when you're preserving foods. So I basically have kind of went over what I really wanted to start with and showcase during this webinar and this live video. And the main things I wanted to start with is the basics. So like I said, you think about what food you want to preserve and then how you would like to preserve that. So there's several things that factor into canning, for instance. We'll start with canning. When you're using a pressure canner to why you would use a water bath canner, you would start to figure out what the acidity level of that product is, or that produce, or that meat product. And so with that, you would figure out and how it works is for water bath canning, the pH level is a high level. So you have to have a high acidic level to do your water bath canning. So in this book, like I showed the website, this book is called So Easy to Preserve. Like I said, it's been developed by the University of Georgia Cooperative Extension. All of these recipes in this video have been scientifically tested that, you know, if you follow this recipe, the recipes in here, they will be very safe for consumption. So like if, you know, you canned up a bunch of jams and jelly, you can be confident if you follow the recipes in this book to know, you know, that it's going to be safe. So the pH levels is what you would decipher. And if you guys can see this book right here, this is a pH chart on what type of foods that you might be using. So the higher acidic foods are a 4.6 to a 1.0. The low acidic foods are the 4.7 to a 7.0 and up. So you think about what it is that you're going to preserve, and then you look at the level. And this is this pertains to the water bath canning and the pressure canner. So like if you are going to can like a jam, so that's a higher acidic food. And if you have a let's say a food and you just don't know, like I got a question like, how is raspberries, are they high acidic or are they low acidic? You can look that up online. Usually you can Google that, and or you can go back to that website that I showed you, or you know, you just basically, if you get a book, you can find out in the book. So there's resources out there to find out what the acidity level is. So when you're going to do those canning, that's what you would look at. So the reason why I'm bringing out all this information about the acidic levels and the proper techniques is because the foodborne illnesses out there are, you know, very, very dangerous, and they also could, you know, cause just adverse side effects if you have not canned properly. One of the biggest one that everybody hears when you talk about canning or food preservation is botulism. So botulism is something that happens, you know, through not properly canning or not properly following the acidic level. The same with bacteria. So there's different types of microbacteria out there that could affect you and, you know, give you intestinal discomfort, you know, make you sick and could cause, you know, food sickness. And so with that, you basically need to think about, you know, how it is that I could properly can. So when I give these resources out, what I'm really saying is, you know, please don't Google like a recipe and then go to a website that, you know, momsthatcan.com kind of thing. And you just like looking at a recipe and you're like, oh, okay, that looks doable. Because sometimes not, that recipe might not have been scientifically tested. And so you have to be aware of those things. So that's just a caution out there. If you are going to go on Google, please try to make sure like you find a like EDU website or, you know, college website, so that you know that those recipes have been tested scientifically. So going on, like I said, the So Easy to Preserve book, you know, we can upload these links online so that you can look them up. But we're also going to utilize, different resources out there. So like if you're doing, say, jams or jellies, in most jams and jelly products, there are actually recipes inside of these. So you could get out the recipe that's inside of it, and you could be very confident, as long as you follow that recipe, that it will come out safe for consumption. So I talked about botulism and I talked about bacteria, but I also want to talk about E. coli, or, a fancy word for poop, basically. So when I say that, we really got to think about proper hand washing too. So, going to the sink and making sure that you wash your hands constantly while you're dealing with your product is super important to making sure that, you're not adding extra bacteria or, E. coli. So washing your hands, and what I like to do is I basically get my soap and I fervently wash really, really hard. And the friction really is what kills any type of bacteria. So I rub really fast and vigorously with the soap, and then, wash the top of my hands, and then wash all around, and then rinse my hands. And you want to do that for about a good 20 to 30 seconds. Super important, something that needs to be done, all the time while you're canning, especially if like you go from touching the product, say it's a meat product, cutting it up, and then, putting it in the jar, and then adding, like grabbing salt or something else. You need to wash in between of those things so that you don't also contaminate other items. Now I'm gonna take a drink real quick. So like I said, hand washing is super important. The next thing that's super important is the sanitation of your canning jars and your canning equipment. So basic jar, what you do is you run a nice hot sink full of soap and a little cap full of bleach. Wash it out, dry it properly, so that it's sanitized. On every single jar that you have, it also has a lid and a ring. You will be boiling those things too, so that you make sure that they're really nice and sanitized. So doing that process is super important to making sure that your product does not contract any type of bacteria or anything like that. So now I'm going to basically kind of just go over my favorite things. I don't know if there's questions really quick, or if we want to just take a second to answer any questions that you guys might have right at the moment, if that's all right. Okay, so moving on. Basically, when you start canning, you really need to start thinking about the type of equipment and the things that you'll be needing to start canning or to start home preservation. So, like I said before, there's 3 basic methods to canning. There is the water bath method. There are also the canning method, which is 2 different canners. You have a pressure canner and you have a water bath canner. And then you have fermentation. So, like I said earlier, you'll decide about what it is that you want to achieve with your product that you have. So you have a ton of, berries, and that you want to do some, water bath canning. Like I said before, it's about the acidic level. So I'm going to stand up and I'm going to start showing you some of my products, or some of the equipment that you will need once you start canning. Now, I have a flat top oven, and so the old traditional water bath canners, they were like enamel, they were black, if some of you've seen them, and they like have little specks of white on it, and then they had like a black lid. Well, this is a water bath canner right here. I love this canner. It's stainless steel. Like I said, I have a flat top. The enamel canners that I have are the enamel canners actually have like ridges on the bottom, so they're not actually certified to be used on a flat top. So this is a really great canner to have. This canner is made by a company called Victorio. It has a glass lid, which is really neat because like you don't have to keep lifting your lid up and down to make sure that it's boiling or not. This is, you know, basically about close to 60 quarts. It is great. So Cadillac, I say, of stainless steel canners. In every single one of the water bath canners, you'll have a rack in there that you can sit up and then also, you know, put your product in there and drop down into your water. So that is the water bath canner. We have the pressure canner right here. This one's made by Presto and it's aluminum. Basically has a gauge on it to tell you the top, pressure that it's building up inside of your canner, with also another rack at the bottom. Once you have it and you have it filled up, you know, you put it on your canner, and then, sorry, it's being non-cooperative at the moment, but you put it on and then you turn it to close it shut. The basic makeup of a pressure canner, you know, you have the body, you have the rack inside, and then you have your lid. On your lid, like I said, it has your gauge, but it also has these other items that are very important. So this right here is where your steam will start coming out. Once that steam comes out, let me grab my stopper real quick. You will have a weight that is placed on that steam. Once that steam starts coming out, then your pressure will start to build. Also, before that, this will pop up. I don't know if you guys can see it, this will pop up. Basically, that shows you that there is pressure building in your canner. It also has this little rubber gasket right here. And so if your pressure gets to this caution level right here, so there's if you guys can all see it, there's a caution level right here. Once it gets to that caution level and it builds up so much heat and so much pressure and it's getting to the danger zone, this will blow first, just to make sure it's like a safety measure right here. It could get to the point where if it were to blow, it could actually, you know, blow up. So there's an immense amount of pressure that is in a pressure canner. And I think that's a lot of the reserve to why some people don't do much home preservation, because they're afraid of a canner blowing up. And most of the time, if you are watching your canner and you are being involved in the process, you should be safe. You know, it's when you walk away and then you don't check on it, that's when things can happen wrong. So just putting that out there. It's not as bad as people think, but it, you know, like I said, it could blow up for sure, but you just got to keep an eye on it.
Hey, Megan, we have a question here. We have a question from Melanie Smokey. She said she's got a chip in the bottom of her canning pot. Is it still okay?
So the chip is on the bottom of your canning pot, like the outside?
It was a chat question. So she hasn't responded to that, but yeah, I guess she's just, specific to the bottom of the canning pot.
Okay, so yeah, it should be fine. I don't see why it wouldn't. Where I would be concerned of if there was a chip on your canner, especially your pressure canner, is if it was like on this area of your rim or your lid area. If it is, you know, then it could compromise the seal. I mean, compromise the pressure process. So also, I forgot to mention that there is a gasket that goes around the inside of your canner. These are important to have. They need to be changed here and there, you know, every couple of years or so. Basically, what you want to do is you want to rub your finger around your gasket right here, just to make sure that there's no cracks or there's no, basic tears or anything in that. So those need to be replaced every couple of years. So
Looks like
if it's not,
she provided, oh, she provided a little bit more context here. She says it dropped and the chip showed through into the inside. So it looks like it went all the way through. And then it's on the canning black pot with little white dots. So it's like a, you know, it looks like it's a chip.
It's the water bath can. Yeah, so those are the water bath canners. Yeah, if it's not leaking, I think it should be fine. But if it's leaking, you know, I wouldn't use it because basically when you're doing your water bath canner, you're going to fill this up. And when you're processing whatever it is, so like I showed you earlier with the website that had the recipe laid out, there's going to be a processing time to whatever you're putting in this. So if you're making jam, you know, usually the processing time is about 10 minutes. So you're basically bringing this entire pot full of water up to a rolling boil is what they call it. When you look at it, it's not a boil that is kind of going, it's like, it's boiling pretty frequently. Then you start your timer on that product in there. So if the chip is just on it, but it's not leaking, as long as you can get that boiling process going and having your product in there for the amount of time that you're supposed to process, it should be fine. Any other questions? Okay, yeah, so feel free to interject, Kira or any of the other IEC staff, so that we can make sure that during this time we're answering the questions that, you know, people are having. Because for me, myself, like sometimes I have a question and I'm like, oh, you know, okay, I'll wait. Then I'll ask it after, you know, the time. And then at that time, you could be totally forget. And then like, oh man, wish I really asked that question. Okay, so the next thing that you can get in regards to your canners and your pressure or your water bath is a canning kit. So this canning kit is pretty cool. It comes with basically everything that you need. It has the jar lifter, a measurement, and a funnel and a sponge to clean out your jars, and also I call it a debubbler with a magnet on it. What's really cool about getting the entire kit is it has everything that you basically need. So when you're canning, these are the tool that is one of the most important. You really cannot can without this tool. It's called a jar lifter, and it basically takes your jar in and out of your canner. So when you're canning, you know, jams, jellies, pressure canning, whatever it is, this, when it's done, is super hot, you know, so you not having a proper jar lifter and trying to get your product out of your canner, you know, it's very difficult with anything other than this. I don't recommend not using that. Take a quick drink.
Another question came through too, Megan.
Okay.
When making jelly, Melanie, she says she doesn't use the wax on the top. She just does the bath. Which is better?
Okay, so the paraffin wax on the top is usually utilized to keep the air out of your jam or jelly, but usually I don't utilize that method, so I don't really use the paraffin wax. I just do the basic pectin and, you know, can it with the jar with the lid on it. Okay, so jar lifter. Excuse me 1 second. Also, you know, in the kit, like I said, it has a measuring cup. So basically every recipe has some sort of measurement. So like if you're using a jam or jelly, most of the time it's sugar that's going to preserve it. So you really have to have a measurement. You can't just eyeball it. If it says 2 cups, you make sure that this is a 2-cup one. You make sure it's filled to the top, and that you basically, use a knife or something to wipe off the top. Important when you're making jams and jelly is that a lot of people ask me this all the time, like Meagen, it says that it calls for like 7 cups of sugar, 7 cups of sugar, right? And you're like, oh, that's a lot of sugar, Meagen. Should I use it? Yes. If the recipe calls for it, you have to use it. Now, there are other recipes out there that you can get, or other pectins out there that you can get too, that are more of a low sugar, low sodium pectin. Sorry. Not low sodium. I meant low sugar. Sorry. It's hot in here now. So, you can get those, but do not reduce sugar because you think that it is just too much. If the recipe calls for it, that's what you have to use. And, it's unfortunate, but, a lot of times, especially the jams and jellies, they're really, really high sugar content, but that is what preserves it. So you need to have your proper measurements. Also, like, teaspoon, tablespoon, all those types of measurements as well. This thing's basically like a butter knife, but I call it a debubbler with a magnet on the top. This is really neat because when you are sanitizing your lids and rings, it has a magnet on it so that you can just pull out your lids and rings and just put it on top of your jar. It's a lot easier to use, and getting your stuff out. This is a sponge. You don't really have to have one of these. It's not a necessity, but when you are sanitizing your jars and your lids and all that, this is one cool thing that comes in the kit. Another thing that is one of the things that is a pretty much well needed tool. You need it to, especially if you're doing jams or jellies. When you do jams and jellies, the sugar and the juice or the fruit gets super, super, super hot. And so, and it's also very sticky. So you have to utilize your funnel to pour in your jams and jellies. And, it's definitely a tool that's very, very, very needed. So, those are basically the tools besides the canners and stuff like that. They're really, really not that expensive. Another tool that is not in the kit, but it's something that you need, is a timer, because every one of the products that you're going to be canning or doing are going to be timed. So like a processing time. Just like I said earlier with the jams and jellies, it's usually 10 minutes. For like, if I'm going to can meat and stuff like that, it's got a time. So I have to have a timer. Super, super important not to, reduce the time on your recipe. Like if it says to do 10 minutes, don't not do 10 minutes. That's super important, because what that processing time on that recipe actually does is it basically, like I was talking earlier about the scientifically tested product, that the core of whatever this is in this jar, has been tested to make sure that there's no microbes, no bacteria growing inside of your item. So that's super important. Don't reduce the times. You need to follow the recipe as much as I can. So I can't stress that enough. Utilizing home preservation recipes really, really got to be followed. The next thing is, like I said before, once you find out your acidic level of your product, you'll want to figure out which method of preservation you're going to use. Now, there are a couple preservation ingredients that you just need. So for meats and, jerkies, things like that, salt is a preservative. It preserves, again, like I said, if you feel like it's too much salt, you're not allowed enough sodium, and you want to reduce that, don't do it, because this is your preservative. It's super important to make sure that you follow the recipe for this. Again, another preservative is sugar. So if you are preserving your food and you're making jams and jellies, like I said, you don't want to add as much sugar as the recipe calls for, then you would, you know, think that it would be fine to cut it back. You know, again, that could also result in your food not being preserved longer. Now, a lot of people ask this question. They say, Meagen, you know, when you make jams, jellies, you know, meat and all that kind of stuff, like what's the shelf life on that product? Well, usually general rule is 2 years. So if it goes beyond that 2 years, they say, you know, you just got to make sure that it's not, you know, expired. I don't suggest you going into your pantry and saying, oh man, this was gifted to me like 5 years ago. Is it safe? And then, you know, you heard me saying like 2 years is the shelf life, and you throw it away. I wouldn't do that. Basically, what I would do with my product is I would look it over. I would make sure, like, I would look at the top of it, and I would make sure that there's no like mold or anything that I could see visually that is affecting it. I'll make sure that this is sealed, so you can hear that it's nice and sealed. And then like for my meats and stuff, so this is a jar of eels. I'll look at it and I'll see if I could see like any type of bubbling or any type of like, you know, like basically signs of like fermentation, like fermenting bacteria growth or anything like that. That's what I'll look over at it. And if it looks safe, and like I said, this is nice and sealed, it's not making a pop noise, then I'm totally cool with, like, you know, saying that should be good and good to go. But I'm hoping that if you get into food preservation, that you eat the food, that it doesn't just sit in your cupboard for a long time. You know, it's meant to be eaten, you know, and it's not really, you know, meant to be sitting around. It's meant for your family to consume it. So those are definite things that you want to make sure. And like I said, with those preservative things, like the sugar and the salt, that all factors into your shelf life. It factors into your, you know, the quality of your product. With sugar, you know, if you are making jams and jellies, it factors in set failure or set success. And what that means is basically, like, if I'm looking at my jam and jelly, and then it's super, super watery looking, you know, and, you know, basically it's basic syrup at that point, then, you know, I had a set failure. Now, if it's held up and it's definitely at that consistency of a jam or jelly, that's a set, you know, success. Another cool thing of home preservation is fermented foods. So here I have 2 different varieties of sauerkraut. So sauerkraut is basically fermented cabbage. This actual jar right here has over a 90-day-old cabbage. So super, super cool fermentation is. So basically, you take the recipe, what it says to do, you cut up your cabbage, and then you ferment it. Let me see if I can find my lidding thing. So this is like a it's a sauerkraut, basically contraction. I forgot what they're called, but basically what it does is when you're fermenting food, again, air and microbes are bacteria are the killers of some food that make them ferment. Well, when you are doing the fermentation process for sauerkraut, these little cool things are really neat because you don't have to do a huge amount of sauerkraut. And if you are on Facebook, I have a Facebook page called Cooking Healthy in Indian Country, and that I actually made this sauerkraut on it. And basically what I did is I just took a recipe that I was given by one of my other fellow master food preservers. And I took the sauerkraut, pushed it down into the jar with the salt, and then basically covered it with its own juices, plus also utilized a brine to put over to the top of the sauerkraut. And it basically pushed it down. But while that was fermenting, all of the gases that the cabbage was releasing needs to go out. And so this thing's really neat because you put water in it to keep the air out, and then it just only releases the gases from the sauerkraut as it's fermenting. This actual sauerkraut, I believe, is like almost 2 months old. Super, super good. The important thing about fermented foods is that it has probiotics, or good, healthy bacteria. Today, and this pandemic, as we are sanitizing the heck out of everything, bleaching everything down, and cleaning everything, hand sanitize, spraying, washing our hands frequently, we are definitely doing some good work on killing bacteria, but also we're also killing healthy bacteria. And bacteria you need in your diet so that it could actually help to break down your food. Okay, so those are some basics that you'll need when you're doing some home preservation. And I just kind of wanted to also kind of, oh, wait, let me talk about one more thing. So dehydration. So when you are using the dehydrator, basically the main method of that is like you are getting the air out of the air and the moisture out of your product, whatever it is, whether it's jerky or acorns. So right here I have some acorn flour. Basically I leached this right here, and then I processed my acorns, and I laid them out in flat on a dehydrator rack and dehydrated up, made some flour. So getting the air out of that. You can make fruit leathers, you can make jerky, any kind of thing with the dehydrator. Really neat. Again, this book right here, it definitely has a lot of that information on any type of home preservation that you have. It's a really, really well put together book, because it doesn't just only cover like water bath, it doesn't only cover pressure canner, it covers like a multitude of different techniques in it. Any questions, comments, anything on the Facebook Live that anybody might have a question about?
I think that I don't think we've had any questions on Facebook Live, but something that's coming up is, could you just give a little brief overview of your Cooking Healthy in Indian Country channel and some of the resources that you provide there on it briefly, but maybe a little bit of an expanded version of that.
Okay, yeah, so I have a page called Cooking Healthy in Indian Country, and it's basically a great way to not only just get information out there, but also like, not a lot of people are, going to like personal Facebook pages and doing a lot of able to share a lot of other people's content. So the reason why I really like to use the Facebook page is because people can share it anywhere. You don't have to just be my friend to share it. You can get it out there, and it's free to the public. But basically what I've been doing on that page is basically showing an not in person, but a live demo, like on how to make. We did the sauerkraut, we did the recently just did this one, which is a 3-berry blend. It's actually commod berries. I got a bunch of berries, frozen berries from commod, so I made the 3-berry blend on that. But that website or my Facebook page there, it basically has a lot of different techniques and a lot of different things that you can be doing, and really, really easy to share, and really, really easy to go back to and say, oh, okay, I know that I had a question like, what did Meagen do there? So you could rewatch those, and it's, something that you can go back to and refer back to.
Great, thank you. There's another question. Melanie would like to learn more about canning meat. Is the pressure cooker necessary?
So yes, back in the earlier times of canning, a lot of people used to just water bath canned meats and stuff. And it has worked, but it's not as safe. So when we're talking about lower acidic foods, we're talking about utilizing that pressure canner. So like I said before, having, like, these are eels right here, having the core of this be safe for consumption is definitely what we want to look for. But yes, a pressure canner is, I would say, is very needed for canning any type of meat.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, Meagen. It was extremely informative, and we so look forward to, future webinars on specific topics. We're sure everybody's going to be really excited to see more demonstrations and things of that nature. Any other questions?
Well, just before we get off of here, I just wanted to kind of show some of my favorite things. These are basically not, necessary or not absolutely needed things, and they are a little spendy, but because like I am a canner that likes to can a whole heck of a lot, I love these things. This right here is like one of the best inventions in the world. It is called a steam juicer. I love it because like I said, I'm a gatherer. We do a lot of gathering. One of the berries that I love to gather is a huckleberry. But if you've made huckleberry jam before, or any type of huckleberry product, it really, really is a lot to clean those huckleberries. But with this thing, this guy right here, he actually basically, I don't know why I call him he, but it basically actually helps to cut down that time. It's a three-tiered, or like a three-compartment kind of a stainless steel pot. At the bottom, it holds water. In the middle, it is a juice catcher, and then the top is a stainless steel colander. And what it does is, like I said, if you've dealt with huckleberries before, or berries in general, just different berries, you have to clean them. Basically getting the stems off of them, getting leaves out of them, getting like, wood or whatever, bugs, those kinds of things out of it. Well, with this thing, you don't have to clean it as thoroughly. So like when I do my huckleberries, like I just take out the leaves and the branches and the bigger things that could affect it, and then I put it, basically affect the flavor. It's not going to do anything bad to it, just going to affect the flavor. I throw it in here and I start boiling it, and it basically steams up through the berries and it collects the juice right here, and it is the best invention ever. These things run about $80. You can find them on Amazon. Super, super great investment. You can throw whole apples in here, make apple juice out of it. Don't have to core them, peel them, nothing like that. Grapes, same thing, all kinds of that stuff. There's so many opportunities to use it. If you can go to my Facebook page, there is a presentation on huckleberry jelly on there, so it'll show you what this thing actually does. Really super cool. Now, I'm gonna just kind of take you guys over here because it's so big and so heavy. But this right here is called an All-American canner. This canner is a 64 quart canner. It has these little turn knobs right here that actually keep it closed. This thing does not have to have a gasket on it because it is closed by these knobs right here. It is great. Pretty spendy. It's about $400, but when I'm canning a ton of fish, like sometimes we catch 30 fish, it is awesome to do it all in one set. So those are just a couple of my favorite things. I have different other items as well that I just basically invest in. And the reason why I invest in them is because it's something that I love to do. I love to can, but I also am a person that likes to cut my time shorter if I can. So like I'm totally about like, you know, cutting corners here so that you can get your job done faster. And those things actually help my job go faster.
Great, thank you so much. See a couple questions. Where can the juicer be purchased? And the next one would be for a new canner, what is one thing I should invest in?
So for a new canner, definitely getting, you know, a pressure canner and a water bath canner. So like I said, the enamel canners are great, but if you have a flat top stove, it's really not, you can't use those. And so, you know, I suggest the stainless steel one. They run close to about $60. The aluminum canners, they run about $80, the pressure canners. So I would recommend investing in those items for sure.
And where can the juicer be purchased?
The juicer can be purchased on Amazon.
Amazon, okay.
So just look for like stainless steel steam juicer.
Great. Let's see, one of the questions that have come at this point. I was just told that you're going to be involved in the virtual Intertribal Food Summit, doing a presentation. Oh. You want to talk a little bit about that?
I didn't know I was going to be a part of
that. Okay, well, I think you're on our list to reach out to about that. We'll
okay, I think Robert and Emily were on the call today for that with Azalea and Zach, so maybe that's where that came out of. I just yeah, I didn't know, that was the first I hear about it, but I'm definitely into it for sure.
Very good. We'll follow up offline on that one. Great. Well, thank you so much again, Meagen, for everything. And you know, we've got a few little announcements. What I can do actually is, did you have anything else you wanted to cover before I share the screen again, and I can go over the last few announcements before we wrap up for today?
I just wanted to basically, you know, maybe you guys can email it or you can comment, but just kind of, we wanted to do a series on these things. So like, you know, what is it, something that they all want to really see to be canned, you know, whether it might be like jam or jelly first, so that we can start planning on what, you know, what products we'll be canning over the series.
Great. And I'm going to share, Meagen, are you okay with your Meagen18@gmail email?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Yep. Okay, great. So that's been shared in the chat so that people can take advantage of reaching directly out to you.
Okay,
thank you so
perfect.
much, Meagen. Yeah, I appreciate all your efforts, and we thank you, and you're such a wonderful partner to IAC and all that you do. I'm going to go ahead and go back to sharing the screen so I can just show a couple things, and then we'll wrap up from there.
Okay.
So let's see. Here's the information on the virtual Intertribal Food Summit. You can find it on Facebook. It's going to be on June 20th, online event. You know, please do you know, pre-register for that. Would love to have your involvement. And the questions. Let's see. Okay. Just want to make that another reminder announcement about filling out the surveys, as well as doing some identifying some folks within your communities that can sign on to support IEC's efforts to leverage critical relief for Native farmers and ranchers. The information there. And then everybody that was affiliated from IEC today, on as well as our coordinating committee, we really thank you for participating. And again, there's our information, some great points of contact within our organization that you can reach out to. And I think that's it. We thank you all so much for attending, and you know, please do follow back up with us if you have any questions. We absolutely are wanting to take your guidance on future webinar topics, and in working with Meagen, we're looking at a June or July follow-up webinar on a particular topic. So that's coming together, and we'll ensure that we you know, post the information and share that around far and wide. For those that have signed on today via Zoom, we have your contact information, which is great, and we will go ahead and ensure that we get you some follow-up information on that. Alrighty, that's it. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a good rest of your day. Thanks again, Meagen.
Thank you guys, appreciate it. No, thank you.